Hey there, listeners. Welcome to Hines on Air, your weekly dose of inspiration, motivation, and real-life entrepreneurial stories. I'm Matt Hines, your host, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey. From building a successful law firm to venturing into other industries like real estate and social media, I've experienced both the triumphs and the challenges that come with entrepreneurship. I've learned firsthand the importance of resilience, adaptability, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. On Hines on Air, we're diving deep into the world of business, law, and personal growth. Join me as I chat with incredible guests who have faced adversity, defied expectations, and achieved extraordinary success. We'll discuss their strategies, their mindset, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply someone looking for a little inspiration, Hines on Air is for you. Remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review whenever you listen to podcasts. Your support helps us reach more people and continue sharing these incredible stories. Let's get started. This program is being sponsored by Law Offices of Matthew C. Hines. The Law Offices of Matthew C. Hines helped all individuals who have been involved in a car accident, who have been injured at work, or have been arrested or given tickets. We make sure your rights are protected and that you receive all the benefits allowed under the law. Visit us at www.hineslaw.org, hineslaw.org. Hey everybody, Matt Hines back at you with another Hines on Air. All right, super interesting show tonight. Fascinating guest on with us. Her name is Lexlee Overton. Now, Lexlee is a seasoned trial lawyer. She's been doing that for 30 years. And then after mastering the legal area, she went on to start coaching others in leadership strategies, and an area that I want to hear about because she was getting teams and other leaders and other business practitioners, coaching them on how to handle pressure, avoid burnout, and I guess just have a better life. I'll let Lexlee explain that more later. But Ms. Overton, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Matt. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. All right. So I'm an attorney, and you got a lot more experience than I do. So I'd love to hear how'd that career start. How'd you get into law?
I'm a fifth generation lawyer.
Oh, really?
And both of my parents are lawyers, and then the generations before. So I think I was out of 6 children, 4 of us became lawyers. So it was really sort of I guess destined in a way. Yeah. So, and I was very lucky. I got to come out of law school and practice with my dad.
Yeah. And
so I was immediately in the courtroom because he didn't think there was a better way to learn than to be on your feet. So I was very lucky to have that.
That is, you are lucky. That's amazing. I'm trying to get my son to follow me, but right now he's not interested. He's sales or something. I don't know what he's going to do, but he's like, I'm like,
no.
Buddy, let's
being a trial lawyer and telling stories is a lot about sales. You need to tell him that.
Okay. Yeah. That is a good spin. You're right. So what kind of law do you specialize in?
I did personal injury.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I assume you were doing more like major injuries, that sort of thing.
We did. We ended up, my dad had been in practice for a long time, so he had built a reputation. So then he was taking, by the time I came in, I was very lucky to work on really complicated litigation cases. Yes.
Hey, can you give us one of your stories? Anything exciting that happened? And I don't know, just left an impact?
There are all kinds of different stories. I'll give you one of the most unique ones.
Okay.
Was, being here, I'm in Baton Rouge. There is a probably about 50 miles north, a really rural community, and there was a big storm one night, and a utility pole fell, and my client walked out to go check on his neighbors, which they all his family lived in these little houses together, and walked into the live wire, right? Took off half of his face. And it was because of the utility company, and the pole was actually rotten, defective, and had been missed, etc. So that was probably one of the most interesting ones I had. Yeah.
Took off half of he lived?
He lived, had major surgeries that for a long time he, walked around looking very scary to people. But eventually we got him to a place where he was living pretty much more normal than he was, because for a long time he couldn't even eat because good part of his jaw was missing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So like they took him like the nose down or the
yes.
jaw?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible. And so the pole would not have
fallen.
fallen.
An unusual one. That's one that sticks out. I mean,
yeah, no,
I've
that
had
would definitely
lots
stick
and lots
out.
of cases, but it's probably one of the most unusual ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the pole would not have fallen if the company would have maintained it better and just kept the.
Yeah, right. And the inspections up, right? They were required to do inspections. I don't remember exactly if it was every year at this point because it was a long time ago, probably 15 years ago that I handled this case. But yes, so they ended up being, fully responsible and compensating him.
Then I assume it sounds like y'all settled that case.
We did settle it. We worked it to trial, which often happens, right? And then right on the courthouse steps, ended up settling it. Yes.
And just tell the audience, I mean, you and I kind of know the strategy, how the defense works, but is it oftentimes they will just withhold any reasonable offer up until the day of trial, and once they find out you're really serious, then they start getting serious with their offers?
Yeah, and I think also too that you build a reputation as a trial lawyer, so you don't have as much of that once you've got that experience. But when it's a complicated case like that, there was, there was some finger pointing and different things that went on there that made it where we had to go through most of litigation before we were able to resolve it.
Who'd they point the finger at?
There was some thought on him, like walking out and in the dark and in the middle of a storm and et cetera. Another company that was subcontracted to look at inspections.
Yeah.
And things like that. So
that's kind of what I assumed where you're going. Now, why was he at fault for wanting to walk out in a storm?
Well, he wasn't, right? Won't they tell any story not to be at fault for a while? Yeah.
Why did he go outside?
He was just going to check on he had family that lived right there. So he was just going to, the power was out. He was just going out to check on his family.
And the pole, it had fallen already when he walked outside, or it fell?
Yeah. And he didn't see it. He
just
didn't see the wire that he walked into. Yeah.
Lord. Okay. Well, at least there's some justice there. It sounds like as happy an ending as could possibly be.
Yes.
Yeah. In that situation. How about any big trials?
I've tried a lot of cases, a lot of motor vehicle accidents, some trucking cases, things like that. Not anything that stands out that would be unusual as far as looking at that. I've done other cases that have to do with like school liability and bullying and things like that. A lot of passion against. One case that really just changed everything for me as a young lawyer was a motor vehicle accident that this family, who the father was actually a school classmate of mine. His wife was driving and his 6-year-old was in the back seat in a seatbelt. And at that time, under Louisiana law, a 6-year-old could have been in a seatbelt. That's how they defined it, as opposed to the height, which is what it should be. The seatbelt was defective. She was paralyzed because the upper part of the seatbelt didn't properly restrain her, which, then went through and cut her body basically in half and, paralyzed her, from the lower spine. But what I learned in that case, working with the experts, is that is often a common injury that happens to children when they're placed in seatbelts too soon. They're not tall enough. It hits on the stomach and causes internal injuries and often paralyzes them. Whereas we want them to be tall enough where it hits on their hips. And at that time, most states did it by age or weight. Has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the height.
Right.
That, as a mother of an 8-year-old at the time, who was petite, I didn't know. I had her in a seatbelt and had no idea because she was 8. I mean, right? She should be able to be in a seatbelt without a booster seat. But once I started to learn about this, it set me on a path of like, that is crazy. And just a weird scenario of like this local state trooper calling me and asked me if I wanted to take a car seat class. And I was like, sure. Because if I could prevent one kid from having this happen, he's like, okay, it's 4 days. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. And I did it. I became certified in installing car seats. I used to do it all the time at my office. But it fueled me to start a nonprofit for injury prevention of kids that now is one of the largest nonprofits for injury prevention of kids. We cover everything from sleep, from SIDS safety and babies all the way through teenagers, and doing distracted driving and driving under the influence, et cetera. So I became obsessed with car seats. And then later and I put that 8-year-old back in a booster seat when I discovered. And then later when she was a teenager, I became really obsessed with teen driving. So, if you talk about cases that are significant and that change you, that would be one. And that's another one that we had to take all the way through. And I think we settled that one in the middle of the trial. And different, defendants because of different insurance companies, but also the manufacturer of the seatbelt. Yeah.
So you sued. Okay. So the other driver was responsible for the accident, correct?
The other driver was definitely responsible. Their tire blew out and they lost control and they hit head on. So mom was killed in the accident. Dad was injured, but 6-year-old Lauren was, paralyzed. Yeah.
Yeah. Seeing a child injured, that's not something that's easily.
I still have in my memory going to New Orleans to Children's Hospital to follow her a day of her therapy. And it just broke my heart, which is one of the reasons why I decided if there's one, if I could take a class to make a difference, ended up being a really life-changing thing. So it's really great when you can, take my passion for law that brought me into a passion of something else. And I'm really proud of the work that we're doing in that organization. It's been 15 years since we started it.
Wow. Very good for you. That is amazing. Okay. And just to go back for a minute. So y'all filed suit against the other driver and you also filed suit against the seatbelt manufacturer?
Yes.
Okay. Did they ever, I know it's probably a confidential matter, but did y'all settle with them as well?
We did.
Okay. So they admitted that there was some sort of defect in their seatbelt?
They did.
Even though the child was too small?
Yes. I mean, of course, that was a defense that it wasn't, though, illegal, right? It was legal for that child to be in a seatbelt.
Right.
It's one of the things that I did do. I spent quite a bit of time working with other people in Louisiana lobbying to have that law changed. And it now is changed. It is by height. And it is now in most states because NHTSA has, comes in and says, we're not going to give you federal funding if you don't change, when we have these kind of statistics. But it took a while. But it is different now. It is by height instead of age or weight. Yeah.
Got you. Good for you. All right. So I think this is a true statistic. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the legal industry, attorneys either have one of the highest drug usages or suicide rates or a lot dealing with stress. Is that a correct? Yeah. Is that what you... Okay.
Right. So I think some of the numbers are we're 4 times as likely to be clinically depressed as our non-lawyer counterparts. Twice as likely to use drugs or alcohol to deal with anxiety and stress and the pressure of this practice, right? It's very, we're talking about these cases. These are people's lives. This is really significant. And even if you're not handling those kind of cases, the nature of the practice is so adversarial that you're always under fire, right?
Yeah.
Your nervous system is that, right? In a constant fight or flight, which we know that long term, even if it's just a little bit of stress, right? If you wake up and you reach for your phone and you're feeling a little bit of anxiety that you don't even recognize because you stay in there all the time. We know that statistics say that in the Western Hemisphere, probably 90% of the people that are walking into our hospital are as a result of a long-term chronic, even low-level stress that is then takes the wear and tear on the body. For lawyers, the American Bar Association became really invested in that. 2016 did their big study. I know they're doing another one right now. Where they're looking at the practice and the number of what you're talking about, suicide rate, depression, etc., and what we can do about that. And the ABA made a big push for law firms to start to lead wellness. I think we talk more about that than we used to, but I don't think it's still at the level that it needs to be. It's pretty significant. And I imagine that you in your own background, Matt, have had to have experienced what I'm talking about.
Sure. I mean, we've worked
really stressed.
Yeah. It is. It's hard. It's hard sometimes. We do criminal defense as well as the personal injury stuff like you're talking about. And it's when a client, we just went through a trial, and I say I'm taking too much credit. It was an attorney in our office, and the state's wanting him to go to jail for several years, but if he loses at trial, he could be there for 10 years. And mama and family and all are totally depending on us. And
Right.
it's stressful. It sounds
It
like,
is.
oh, well, just tell them give them your best advice and move on. It's fine. No, it's not like that. It is something that totally is all consuming mentally
Right.
when you give
And I
that
think
kind.
criminal defense lawyers, and I work with law firms all over the country. So I work with lawyers that are in every area of practice. And I work with a lot of criminal defense lawyers. And I think it's the hardest work that there is because the stakes are even that much higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand what you mean when we're talking about the stress that the industry sort of imposes on you. It's just unavoidable with our line of work.
Right.
Real estate closings or something like that, probably not as stressful, but
But there could be mistakes that, that could happen. I mean, I have a real estate, one of my best friends is a real estate lawyer. There's a lot of pressure in getting that right. I mean, there can be, it's just as much, like you can make a mistake that could be malpractice.
Well, I'll
right?
say this. I used that example too quickly because I was a real estate attorney for about the first 5-7 years.
Well, there you go.
It was
that still can
mess.
be stressful. Yeah.
The actual practice of law was not. The management of the group was, because you have a lot of people dealing with a lot of money, and they don't always care as much as you do.
Right.
And
it's different kind of stakes.
It's
different kind of pressure.
It is. It's messed up. So anyway, so you sort of recognize this issue with attorneys, and it looks like you devoted a lot of your practice to helping attorneys deal with this kind of stuff.
I mean, Matt, I walked out of a courtroom. Remember I said that I practiced with my dad, so I was lucky because I was on my feet right away. So as a young lawyer, I had a lot of trial experience through him very quickly. But by the time I was 31, 32 years old, I walked out of a courtroom in northern Louisiana from a motion hearing, and I thought I was having a heart attack. And it ended up, so did the ER, and I wasn't. They ended up bottoming out my blood pressure, giving me, thinking that I was. But they ended up that it was like an issue with my esophagus. And I know now, like when they tell me, oh, you need to be on medication, the muscles are contracting. I was like, no. This is crazy. What's wrong with me is I work an insane amount of hours. I'm really stressed out because of the adversarial nature of the practice. I think she was probably 3 or 4 at the time. And I was just so imbalanced and so dysregulated. And I was like, I don't want to be on medicine the rest of my life when I'm only 5 or 6 years into this practice. I loved what I did, but it was really, really hard. And so it set me on a path to study how can you do this and feel like you're thriving and not just merely surviving. So 25 years ago, I started into things like meditation and mindset and all different kinds of things in the last 20 years that I've studied that's led me into naturally, one, made me a better trial lawyer, made me a better everything, made me a better mother, a partner, all the things, right? But also, I used to teach in some national trial programs. And so lawyers started coming to me and saying, that's great, but I want to know a little bit more about how do you do what you do? How do you manage your state and that kind of thing? And it sort of just naturally unfolded from there, people asking me for help that just turned into, I started doing that and calling it mindset and leadership coaching. And then that expanded into from working with the lawyer as the leader to working with their teams. How do we help people to be as high performing as they can be, which helps us to be better for our clients, helps the bottom line, obviously, if we're more high performing. And so I've got to marry my love of law and my history of that into this other skill set that helps them to be better lawyers and leaders.
This program is being sponsored by Bravos Leadership. Bravos Leadership is dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and other business-minded people achieve their goals in business and expand their companies. They provide insight through motivational talks, inspirational stories, but also practical applications of management techniques that you can use to help you grow your company. Information regarding sales, organization, management, and all areas of the company are taught so that you can have a thriving company. Visit bravosleadership.com and find out more information. All right. Well, that's good for you and well done for achieving all that. Can you give us some advice?
Yeah. So I think one of the things we have to think about as lawyers is that there's still a lot of misconceptions around like what it takes to be successful. There's a badge of honor almost in pushing hard and being at the level of exhaustion and recognizing that actually comes at a great cost to you personally. And you're not as high performing as you could be. And I think as leaders, and I don't care what industry you're in, we should be leading an example of well-being if we really want to have high performing teams. And because this is about teaching people how to manage their state to be high performing means to be the best that they can be. And you cannot be that when your system and your nervous system is dysregulated. So one, recognizing that as a leader, that you're the first one that has to learn how to do that. And a lot of lawyers, I have lots of lawyers that come to me because they're at their level of overwhelm and burnout and they want to quit. And, they don't even know what to do with that. And like, you don't make big life decisions from that state. And I can teach you some daily practices that will literally rewire your brain and your system where you can handle this. It's not as hard as you think that it is.
Like what?
Well, like practices, any kind of mindset practice. We do a lot of teaching of breath work because that's something that quickly brings in regulation of the physical system. So when you're in fight or flight, you're in the part of your nervous system that is literally limiting your brain from actually being able to access the part of the brains that we need as lawyers. So the critical thinking, the foresight, the decision making, the creativity. And when we're in fight or flight, and I'm sure listeners can relate to this, even if you're not a lawyer. If you've ever been in a situation, let's say an argument with someone or an intense conversation, and then you walk out of it and a couple hours later when you're taking a shower, you're like, darn, I wish I had thought of that, right?
Yeah.
I wish I could have said that. The reason why you think of it a couple hours later is because you're no longer in fight or flight and you're part of the nervous system that actually conserves energy, but also taps into the part of the brain that's in creativity. So what I tell law students when I talk to them is when you learn to do these practices, you're actually becoming smarter because your brain functions better. So anything from first learning things to shift right in the moment, which breath work is the easiest. And when I say breath work, I'm talking about simple breathing practices that can reset your system. Because when you do deep breathing, you stimulate the vagus nerve that's running from your head down into your gut. That helps you move from the parasympathetic or sympathetic into the parasympathetic nervous system. That puts you in access. So we know emotions affect us every single moment. So we have emotions every single moment. Some of those emotions are really great and fueling and are associated with high performance. So those kind of emotions are things like gratitude or calm or patience. Those bring in collaboration and creativity. And so you can see when you're working in a team, if you're teaching people to be in that state, then they're more harmonious and working together. Whereas other emotions, like what we see a lot in the practice of law, I'll just say when I was a young female lawyer 30 years ago in Southern Louisiana, there were a whole other lot of female trial lawyers in the room with me. So my opposing counsel were men. And I just thought men were very angry all the time because they were so aggressive and over the top. And my dad was like that. He was a very aggressive, over the top trial lawyer. What I know now is that is just a response, a modern day fight response is aggressiveness, sabotaging, anger. So, being in anger or frustration or in anxiety is very depleting to the system. And we know that when we're in those emotional states, so that's interrupting brain function. So you can do simple things like certain type of breathing practice that can shift you immediately in a moment from one part of your nervous system to the other. But then you can do practices like there's all kinds of science behind like gratitude as a mindset practice. Well, literally, they've shown that people who do a gratitude practice daily for 6 weeks have an increase in happiness levels like 25%. And all it takes is just a little bit of like consciousness gratitude every day. These are like simple practices that I can give baseline that would shift people almost immediately. But then we teach some more advanced practices that are based in neuroscience that really look at the ways that you start to rewire your brain to make your home state, that state of coherency, the state of, the calm, the patience, as opposed to the home state being what I'm saying home is, if you think about what's your most common emotional state to be in, like in the last week, most lawyers are going to name anxiety as the top one or two. or frustration is a really a common one to see. And that's a very depleting, draining state to the system. And what we want to be is that the home state is one of calm, and that we are in a space that we are choosing the response as opposed to just reaction, right? Which was what I was seeing a lot with these aggressive lawyers when I was young. Does that make sense?
Let me go back for a minute. The breathing exercises, is it deep breathing? Is that what you mean?
So a very simple one is a form of box breathing. I like to use the count of 7 because it does need to be a long inhale and exhale. And the key is to do it in and out through the nose, because there's all kinds of research that shows us when you breathe out of the mouth, you're stimulating actually the part of the nervous system that's very similar to being in dysregulation, like when you run, and you're breathing through your mouth, right? So in and out through the nose, very simple. We could do it together right now. So a box breathing is equal. So you're going to breathe in for a count of 5 to 7. You choose. 7 is long. I think it's good the longer that it is. So a slow inhale for a count of 7. Then you hold it for a count of 7. You breathe out for a count of 7, and then you hold it out for a count of 7. If you do that, 5 rounds of that, you will notice an instant shift in your state.
Interesting. I would imagine just the mental exercise of doing that, sort of getting the body to do it, taking your attention off of your problems, also kind of pulls you out of your...
So we're always looking at 2 things, right? State and story. So the state, most of the time, has already been affected by the story that's going on, right? I think about something that makes me anxious.
Yeah.
And then I have that emotional reaction, and my body, physical state changes as a result. So if I want to shift that, I got to do something to shift the physical state, and then also recognize the story that's going on. So you're right, Matt. When you're counting and you're having to focus on counting, you've interrupted whatever story that was there. Right. Which is why gratitude is a really easy one too to shift, because that's just shifting the story. You cannot be in anger or aggressiveness or anxiety and gratitude at the same time. This is 2 different stories, and it's 2 different total responses to your system. So emotions affect your physiology more than anything, but the emotions are triggered by the story.
Nice. That makes sense.
Yeah.
In gratitude, I agree. I'm a Scientologist, and one of the principles is a person's ability to help others can kind of determine their level of happiness, sanity. This is a small part, but anyway, it is a sort of a datum in there. And I would think it kind of goes hand in hand with what you're saying, like just giving gratitude, acknowledging somebody, making them feel better is going to sort of bounce back, make you feel better as well.
Yeah. So what you're talking about, Matt, is like if I found myself in a low state, if I put my focus on helping someone else, that takes me out of the story about what I'm on, right? There's service that is something that is really good about helping us to shift our own states. Yeah.
Yep. Interesting. And those are good, and anybody can use that stuff. That's just good, useful advice.
Well, it's not about having to be on a mountaintop.
Right, that's right.
Right. I'm talking about real-time practices that you can do. I mean, I have so many people who not only do it themselves, standing in a courtroom, waiting for their time to speak, as like doing these different breathing practices, because the breath is always with you, right? You don't need anything special. You just need awareness. But also teaching your clients that they become better witnesses, they're better storytellers, because they're not in fight or flight, which we know impacts their brain, which means they're not going to be as good and responsive in the moment when they are under the pressure of being on the witness stand, which is a horrible thing. If you've never had to do it, it's very, very stressful.
Yeah.
So actually having lawyers teach their clients in the preparation to be in the courtroom is also really important. So that's, it's very, very, some of them are so simple, but it's just awareness of it. And then once you start to get those simple practices, then you can build on that, because once you start to see the benefit, and what I find with most lawyers is they're like, I don't have more time in my day to do this. So it's like, if you're telling me that, then that's all the more the reason why you need to do it. But once they start to have the benefits of the simple practices, then we can build in some more.
Gotcha. That's good. All right. Just to clarify, the breathing exercise is 7 seconds out, hold for 7 seconds, 7 seconds in, hold for 7 seconds. And do 5
you would
sets.
really start with the in breath, right? So an inhale first, then a hold, then an exhale. And sometimes 7 is long for people, so start with 5. The goal is that it's just a long, slow inhale that you hold it, and then it's a long, slow exhale.
Got it.
It's, when we're anxious, we usually breathe much more shallow.
Yeah.
But that, when you do a long inhale, you really are stimulating that nerve that helps you to move from the part of your nervous system that's spending energy, right, to the part of your nervous system that's conserving and becoming calm. And all of this is very important when you think about that. You only have so much energy. You wake up, we're energy beings, right? If I was going to go in and have my heart and my brain measured with an EKG or an EEG, it's literally measuring the electrical stimulation that's in my body, right? So every day we wake up with you just think of it as a battery. You have an inner battery that you have so much energy, and that depends on a lot of different factors. How did I sleep? What did I eat? Have I exercised? What kind of emotional state have I been in? How drained was I before I went to sleep? But whatever that is, everything that you do and every emotion that you have, some way is affecting that battery. So there are emotional states that are going to recharge it, and there are ones that are going to drain it. Unfortunately, for most of us, we're living in the one, because even if it's a slow drain, just that low level, when people are just mad about traffic, right? Like that low level of anxiety is a draining on the system. There's one of the things I often use in talks is a slide of a man who's sitting in the passenger seat of a vehicle that his wife is driving. Now, that's enough to drive most men crazy, but when we start out on this and we're looking at his heart rate's pretty low. He's seated in the passenger seat. It's like 60 beats per minute. They get in an argument, and his heart rate, when they are in this argument and he is seated, goes all the way up to 160. It drops back down after the argument stops, but it takes more than an hour to get back to baseline. That's when you're seated, right? All based upon the emotion that he was having. So that's why I'm talking about emotions of impacting our physiology. So think how draining that is to the system if we are living in a state of anxiety or frustration or aggravation like he was. If we're living like that all day long, which is why that statistic about walking in a hospital is usually based for this long chronic stress, is because it's very depleting to the system. And what we know, Matt, is that when people live in that state for a long time and their nervous system is being depleted, then that is what really brings in a lot of times clinical depression, because it's just your nervous system is just worn out, doesn't have it anymore. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I would think it's more mental than physical. If you're surrounded by an arguing spouse or some sort of suppression coming from without, I would certainly think. I mean, there's the argument. I've got to go soon, but I love talking to you. I love what you're saying. If we look back the evolutionary line, the human body was created to survive death all day, live in trees, go outside, attack woolly mammoths and blah, 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 just survive all the time. So the body seems pretty resilient and prepared for anxiety and stress. So how do you sort of balance the evolution of the body and its
well, think about it. The body is meant to reset. It's not meant to stay in that all the time. And we're not living in a war all the time, right? Or running in the jungle constantly.
Right.
But we're living in a low level of that in this society, especially with all that's coming at us all the time, right? All the distractions and things like that. That is what we're saying is over a long period of time, it's just a little bit of a drain, but eventually it's going to have the effect on the nervous system. I'm a country girl. So my brother's hunted. I've done a lot of hunting in my life, right?
Good.
I've been in the woods when a deer has been shot at and then runs off, and then you watch it when it's slit and it shakes.
Yeah.
It's literally shaking off and moving back into the part of its nervous system where it resets, right? That's what happens. But we are in the modern age that we're staying in is a little different from what you're talking about evolutionary. We're living in this constantly all day without resetting. And what we're talking about are knowing the practices and having the ability to reset so that you have more resiliency, that you're recovering energy, so that when you are under a lot of pressure, it doesn't take you so long to recover. And I don't know of any more energy draining thing that I did than being in trial. And when I'd come out of trial, and I remember my first one with my dad, and it was a significant win, but it was a trial it was really hard fought battle. And I was depressed. I was like, what is wrong with me? And he didn't know anything about what I talk about now, but he said, and this was his way of looking at it, was, oh, you're just so intensely focused on this for months at a time that all of a sudden it's over, you feel sad. Really, it's because you've had so much of an energy drain that your system is like depleted when you come down. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, it trials tough to stay focused that long, listening to every word without being able to just sort of relax or anything. It is. I agree with you.
It takes a lot of energy.
It does.
And it takes a long time to recover from it, unless you're doing practices that help your system to recover faster. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about these breathing practices and different kinds of mindset practices that we're learning to rewire our system so that we can recover faster.
That's good. It's amazing how simple things can make such a big difference. There's a book called Problems of Work, and one of the exercises in that is to take a walk. That's it.
Yeah.
Take a walk. And
beautiful way to shift your nervous system from being in the parasympathetic to the sympathetic. I mean, you're sympathetic into parasympathetic, right? It's a great way to release anxiety is to take a walk. Yeah.
Take a walk, yeah. Well, cool. Well, listen, Lexlee, that's been a fascinating, and congratulations to all you've done. What an amazing life. Yeah.
Well, I feel just blessed to be able to do it. I love what I do. So it's great to wake up every day and to feel like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. And do you want to drop a little plug real quick? Anything about your nonprofit or anything that you'd like viewers to go to and see?
Yeah. So where you can find, if you're interested in all the things that we're talking about, the name of my company is Mind Over Law. And you can find me on all social media platforms under my name. And then if you're interested in the nonprofit, it's called The Safety Place, and it's based here in Louisiana.
Sinky?
The Safety Place.
Safety. That makes more sense. Okay. All right, great. All right, Lexlee. Well, listen, thank you so much for the conversation. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, I hope you got something out of this. There's lots of good information. Be sure to practice this stuff. Don't just listen and forget it. Try it. Use it. Have a better life. And we'll see you on the next Hines on Air. This program is being sponsored by Law Offices of Matthew C. Hines. The Law Offices of Matthew C. Hines helped all individuals who have been involved in a car accident, who have been injured at work, or have been arrested or given tickets. We make sure your rights are protected and that you receive all the benefits allowed under the law. Visit us at www.hineslaw.org, hineslaw.org.
Hines on Air is for you. Remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review whenever you listen to podcasts. Your support helps us reach more people and continue sharing these incredible stories.